Easily find all of our crochet tutorials. Type youtube.com/JaydaInStitches into your web browser and we'll see you there. Welcome to the Jayda InStitches show. The time has come to wrap up our 2020 Patchwork calendar blanket by adding a border to the entire project. This year we chose a few really neat different kind of stitch patterns to use in the border, focusing on the idea of patchiness, which goes with the rest of the theme of the blanket, and also using up our scraps, since 2020 was kind of a funny year and a lot of us may not have been able to get out and get more yarn. So you should be able to complete this border with whatever you've got left on hand, and also if you've got a lot of yarn you want to use up, we're going to show you in the tutorial how you can really go nuts with this border. So row 2 can be repeated as often as you want, and the last 2 rows always go together. This is a blanket border based on the magic number of 3. So of course we like to be able to do borders that you can use for other blankets down the road, and if you're going to use this border on a blanket, not this one in particular, then remember you need a foundation border row that is a multiple of 3 on all 4 sides. And that's all you need to know. So let's grab our hooks, grab our blankets, grab our yarn, we'll head on over to the craft table and we will stitch up the border for our 2020 Patchwork calendar blanket together. In keeping with our patchwork theme, we are going to have the opportunity to work all of the colors we used in our blanket in our border as well. But primarily you want to make sure you've got your border color. So for me, that was the white I used around the edge of every single square. You want to have at least 40 yards of that. You're going to want to start with that border color, and then you can work in 2 at least of the colors you used in your blanket, or all of them, or some of them, or if you've completely run out of yarn, you can use completely different colors. It's entirely up to you. You're going to want around 40 yards of yarn per row. So if you're using a whole bunch of yarns, it'll break down amongst those yarns per row. But we're going to show you more about that when we get into the tutorial. So 40 yards per row in your border, and of course you can do 3, 4, 2, as many rows of border as you like. You want a pair of scissors, a yarn needle, and the hook we're using is a 5.5 millimeter, also known as an I or a 9 in the US, a size 5 in the UK. This is the same hook that I was using all along for my project. If you were using a different hook than me for your blanket, make sure you use the same hook size to do your border. And once you've got all that together, we can get started. Keep your hooks and tools handy with Lula and Gwen in this cute zippered pouch by your InStitches friends. Purchase a pouch and help out our show. The Teespring link can be found down below. You can start in any corner, but I like to start in the top right-hand corner of my blanket. So there's my little corner space. And we're all going to start with that same border color that we bordered all of our squares with. So for me, that was white. So whatever your square border color was, you're going to start with that. We're going to begin with a slip knot on our hook. We're going to join our yarn with a slip stitch in that chain 2 corner space. You can weave your tails in as you go, work over top of them, or leave them out and weave them all in later. It's entirely up to you. We're going to chain 3 to begin. This chain 3 will count as a double crochet, and you're going to work 2 more double crochets into that chain 2 space before we head off onto the rest of our blanket. So the chain 3 counts as a double crochet. There's 2 more double crochets worked into that same space, and here we go. We're just going to double crochet in every single stitch all the way across. Make sure when you leave a corner, you pull back on those stitches a bit and free up that stitch. So you don't want to miss that first stitch. because that will change your stitch count, and stitch count is moderately important as we work our border. We do want a kind of a set of 3. We want multiples of 3 to happen. If you don't get multiples of 3, you can fudge it, and I'll show you how to do that when we get on to the next row. But we do want to try and strive for a multiple of 3. So double crochet in every single stitch, and once we get to the first little spot between squares, so this little seam area over here, I'll catch up with you. When you get up to a seam, and that is the space between 2 different squares, remember we're thinking multiples of 3, and this is all you're going to do. You've got a chain 2 space on the end of one square, a chain 2 space against the other one, and there's a seam where we joined our squares right down the middle. So whether you sewed or stitched your squares together, there will be a seam. We're going to double crochet once into that chain 2 space, double crochet once into the edge of the seam. So if you sewed them together, get your hook underneath the stitch. If you crocheted them together, just get your hook under that last stitch, whatever you did to seam your squares together. Double crochet into the next chain 2 space, and then you're off again. Find the next stitch, so make sure you don't miss it. There it is right there, that's the next one. And off you go. You should have 36 stitches running across the top of each square. Then you work double crochet into the space, into the seam, into the space, so 3 double crochets across a seam. And in each corner you're going to have 3 double crochet, a chain 2, and a 3 double crochet. But I'm going to hook up with you when we get across to the next blanket corner, and that should be 1.5 squares from now. When you get all the way across to a corner, so an actual blanket corner, and this doesn't matter what side you're on, so when you get to the very corner of the blanket, you're going to work 3 double crochet into that chain 2 space, three double crochet, chain 2, and 3 double crochet. Kind of like shell, chain 2, shell. We were doing granny squares. So that's every single blanket corner for this row. And like I said, before you leave, make sure you don't miss that first stitch. There it is there. It might be, depending on what side of your blanket square you're using, the stitch might be on this side of the stitch that you're working, and the space that you put your hook through might be on the other side. So I've kind of mixed my squares back and forth. So I liked one side versus another. So just take a moment before you leave and make sure you're getting the top of the actual stitch. Like I said, you want 36 stitches across each square, a stitch in each corner space, seam and corner space, so that's 3 across the middle between squares. And when you get to a blanket corner, 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet, all worked into that corner space. And then it's just double crochet in each stitch all the way around. So that's all you have to do for this first row of our blanket border, and I'll catch back up with you at the beginning. Once you get all the way back around to the beginning of that border row, you're going to work 3 double crochets into that same chain 2 space that we began in. So we started with a chain 3 and 2 double crochets, which counts as 3 double crochet in that chain 2 space. And we finished with 3 double crochets in that chain 2 space, chain 2, and you're going to slip stitch to the top of that chain 3 that we began with to join the row. So nice square corner there. That's it for the white and row 1 of our border. So you can snip your yarn, fasten off, take a moment to weave in your tails if you like, or you can continue to work over top of them. For row 2 of our border row, we're going to start getting patchy. So you want to grab at least 2 colors. We're going to be alternating between them all the way around for row number 2. Now, you can alternate between more than just 2 colors, but for this little patch pattern to work, you need at least 2. So if you've got 5 or 6 colors, you can go absolutely hog wild and use all of them. The concept is the same no matter how many colors you're carrying, but I'm just going to demonstrate using 2. So you're going to pick one color to start, and it doesn't matter which one. Slip knot on our hook. We're going to join not in the chain 2 space, but in the stitch where we fastened off right next to the top of the first stitch of that row next to the chain 2 space. Join with a slip stitch. Chain 3 counts as a double crochet. If you are a loose crocheter, you can use a chain 2 to substitute as your first double crochet. It's up to you, so chain 3 or chain 2, whichever you're more comfortable with. And into the next 2 double crochet, you're going to double crochet once using that same color. Now you can leave your tails out to the back, you can work over top of them like I am, doesn't really matter. Double crochet into each of those next 2 stitches. Okay, so here is what a little mini patch looks like. 3 double crochet all stuck together here. So double crochet, double crochet, double crochet. Keep the number 3 in mind. That's the number of double crochet stitches in each little miniature patch that we're going to work all the way around for row number 2. You're going to grab your next color now. We're going to make a slip knot. We're going to put that slip knot on our hook. We're going to drop all the colors we were just using, and we're going to use this new yarn as to sort of double crochet. So we're not joining with a slip stitch, we're just going to directly double crochet into the next stitch. So we're going to treat this as the yarn over, our little slip knot, I should say. We're going to work. So I'm going to try to put all my tails down here. Pick up a loop. So you'll have the original color loop, your slip knot, and a new loop on your hook, and then just double crochet as normal. If you have to pull on the other color to sort of tighten up that loop, do that. It'll get much easier as we work around. The first few establishing color stitches are sometimes the most trying. To finish off that little miniature patch of color, we're going to double crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. You want to work over top of your tails. So that little tail I can weave in later, but you want to work over top of, I should say, your carrying color. So the color you're not working, your working yarn that you're not using, you work over top of that. And you work 3 double crochet stitches. So it looks like that. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Drop that color. Now, if you wanted to add in another color, you would do exactly the same thing. Grab your yarn, create a slip knot for your hook, double crochet directly into the next stitch, using that slip knot as sort of the yarn over, and then you'll be carrying all of those colors underneath. So I'm going to switch back to my blue now. So I'm going to drop my pink, pick up my blue. I want to make sure that all those colors are sort of in the way so that I can work over top of them. I'm going to yarn over with my original color and double crochet into the next 3 stitches. When I finish that first double crochet, sometimes it's nice to tighten up that other stitch. Not too much though, because it forms the top of your next stitch. So you don't want to tighten it up too much. A little bit's just fine. And then double crochet next 2. As you work, switching between colors will become easier and faster, and you'll get used to that sort of tension that's required. So pull back every once in a while, kind of make sure, see how that one's a little bit smaller because I tightened up on it. So when I'm working along on my next row, I want to make sure I don't miss it, but it will all be very even and tidy because it's mainly the posts of the stitches that you see when a row is finished. So there's 3 little mini patches. All right, let's do another one. Drop that current color, pick up the other one, yarn over, and double crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. So I'm going to just tighten up a little bit on that stitch just before I leave it. And nice, even, regular, normal double crochet stitches. So that's all my little tails now woven in. And there we go. That's the next patch. Let's do another one. Drop that color, pick up the next one, yarn over. You're always working over top of your little carrying color. Tighten that up a little bit. And the purpose of carrying the color is so that it's underneath the stitches. It's right where we need it when we want to switch back. And on the other side, so there's my little tail, I'll weave that in later. On the other side of your blanket, it's still nice and neat and tidy. So you're not seeing like lines of color being pulled along behind the stitches. So that's how you carry a color, and that's how we're going to work that little mini patch stitch all the way across for row number 2. And like I said, you can do as many colors in this row as you want. You want at least 2 though, so that that pretty little miniature patch stitch shows up. Each mini patch is 3 double crochet long. So you're just working a regular old double crochet stitch into each stitch all the way around. But every color, you change color basically every 3 double crochets. And it looks like that. All right, I'm going to let you work away at that until we get up to the next corner, and I'll catch up with you there. Here's our little mini patch border row so far. We've gotten all the way up to the edge, and of course you should have an even number of double crochet stitches from the previous row, allowing you to have a perfect set of 3 double crochet mini patches worked all the way across. If you get to the end of the row and you're a stitch short, just sneak a stitch in. You can cheat if you have to. It's not a big deal and it won't show because this is pretty small work overall. When you get to a corner, so any of the corners that you arrive at, you're just going to continue the pattern. So you're going to switch to your next color, work 3 double crochet into that chain 2 space, chain 2, and then switch to the other color. So that little chain 2, and then 3 double crochet with the other color. So it's 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet in the corner, just like the previous row, but we're switching colors halfway through. And again, it doesn't really matter what color your little chain 2 ends up being, because that's going to be covered by the next row. But that's it. 3 double crochet, chain 2, change color, 3 double crochet, all worked into the same chain 2 space. And then you just continue with that miniature patch thing all the way down the edge. Remember, you're going to switch colors. When you're leaving a corner, pull back so that you don't miss the top of that stitch, that first stitch, as you leave. And that's what helps keep your stitch count on track. Each little mini patch is 3 double crochets long. Change colors, and remember to carry the color you're not using underneath your stitches as you go, so that the back or the other side of your blanket doesn't, it just looks like the front. You don't see those, don't see any of that stitchery getting carried. So nice and neat and tidy all the way around. So 3 double crochet, chain 2, change color, 3 double crochet into each corner. Maintain your little patchy stitch, and I'll catch back up with you at the beginning of the row. As we get around back to the beginning of our border row, we come up against our last corner. So we switch colors going into the corner and work 3 double crochet in the first color, chain 2, and switch colors, and work the last 3 double crochet in the other color. You're going to join with a slip stitch to the top of that first chain 3 or chain 2, whichever you chose to do. And you're going to fasten off both yarns. So both yarns, where's my other yarn? There it is. You want to leave fairly long tails on these, so fasten off the one color up here. And down here, you're just going to take your yarn needle and you're going to slip it underneath a matching color stitch somewhere nearby. and you're just going to do a little simple knot. So I've just brought it back underneath itself, and then through that loop you can make sure it's nice and neat and tight. And then you can go ahead and weave in all of your tails. And that's row number 2 of our border. That's it for row number 2. You can, however, repeat row number 2 as many times as you want. So if you have a whole lot of colors you want to use up, then you can continue to repeat row number 2. Same thing, you would join your yarn in the first stitch, not the corner where my finger is, chain 2 or 3, your choice, double crochet twice more into the next 2 stitches to complete that patch, switch colors, double crochet 3 times, switch colors, double crochet 3 times. It's the exact same pattern. The corners are still 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet, and then of course you join with a slip stitch to the top of your chained 2 or 3, whatever you started with, to finish the row. And as many times as you work this row, you get a really neat multi-patchy, almost gingham kind of effect going. So it looks really cool with a bunch of different rows of the patchwork stitch worked. But I'm going to finish with just that one row. But like I said, you can make your border as wide as you want, and you can repeat row number 2 as often as you please. Let's move on to the next row of our border pattern, and you can join any color you want. I'm going to switch to my bright pink now. I'm going to put a slip knot on our hook. And for this row, we're joining with a slip stitch in a chain 2 corner. Doesn't matter which corner, I'm just starting in the same place that I have for all my other border rows. Join with a slip stitch in that corner and chain 6. The first 3 stitches count as a double crochet. The next 3 stitches count as a chain 3 corner space. And into that same space, we're going to double crochet once more. So a corner is double crochet, chain 3, double crochet. And that's what that represents. I'm going to leave my little tail out to the back. And before we settle into our regular little pattern for this row edge, we're going to chain 2. And normally we would skip 2 stitches and double crochet into the 3rd, but every time you leave a corner, you're going to skip 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and double crochet into the 4th. So that's just after you leave a corner. So the 4th stitch in this case is going to be where you joined your last row. So if it's easier to double crochet into the knot or into the top of the actual stitch that you joined in, doesn't matter. You pick whichever you find most comfortable. And here we go. Chain 2, skip 2 stitches, 1, 2, double crochet into the 3rd. And as luck would have it, the 3rd stitch that you double crochet into will always be the color transition stitch, so the stitch that's the last color before it changes. Chain 2, skip 2 stitches, find the 3rd and double crochet into it. It'll be the stitch before you change color. Chain 2, skip 2, find the 3rd and double crochet into it. That's all you're going to do all the way across, and I'll catch up with you at the next corner. So that's our simple lattice stitch worked all the way across. That's what it's going to look like across every side. When you get to a corner, you're going to work your last double crochet into your 3rd stitch, and you're going to chain 2, and you're going to skip over that last little patch right into the chain 2 corner, double crochet, chain 3, so 3 chains in a corner, and double crochet. So double crochet, chain 3, double crochet in every corner space. Then when you leave, chain 2, but every time you leave a corner, you're going to skip that extra stitch and double crochet. You're still double crocheting into the transition stitch, so that stitch just before you change color, but you're actually skipping 3 stitches when you leave the corner as opposed to the usual 2. Then you're back to normal. Chain 2, skip 2, double crochet into the 3rd, and that's always that little colored stitch just before you change colors. You're going to repeat that all the way around for this row, and I'll catch back up with you at the beginning. When you get all the way back around to the beginning, you're going to work your last double crochet, chain 2 into that 3rd stitch, skip over what's left. That would bring you up to the corner normally, but because we started there, you're going to find the third stitch. So there's 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3. You're going to find the third stitch that you started with and join with a slip stitch, and that completes that row of open lattice. And of course we've got our double crochet, chain 3 double crochet corners. You can fasten off. Take a moment to weave in your ends, and we've got one more finishing row to do. For our final row, we're just going to be focusing on the actual spaces. So you don't have to worry about working into a stitch. We're only working into spaces. So we're going to start in our chain 3 corner, and I've actually pulled both of my short tails up to the top so that I can work over top of them, because I figure that'll be the nice neat way to get rid of them. So that's what I'm going to do. And like our patchwork row, you can do the same thing. So you can carry a color and work all the little things that go into these individual spaces, sort of alternating colors, or you can do it all in one color. So if you want to alternate, it's exactly the same concept. The whatever color you're not using, you work over top of, and then you switch. So if you want to use up some more yarn, then go right ahead and do that, and it'll have kind of the same look worked around the edge. But for me, I'm just going to go with a single solid color, and I'm going to use my blue. I considered using my white, but I think I really want to just finish this whole blanket off with blue. Whatever color you want to use, you're going to start with a slip knot. We're going to start in the chain 3 corner. Any chain 3 corner is fine. Put your hook right through the space. Remember, we're just focusing on spaces for this row and not stitches. I'm going to join with a single crochet. So instead of joining with a slip stitch, I bring up that loop and I single crochet. So I'm joining with a single crochet in that corner space. I'm going to get all of my little tails here under control because I'm going to work over top of them. Into this corner space, you're going to work 3 double crochet. And a single crochet. So single crochet, 3 double crochet, single crochet, worked into every chain 3 corner space. Then you're going to jump to the next space. So as you work along the straight sides of your blanket, you're going to treat every chain 2 space the same. You're going to work a single crochet, a double crochet, and a single crochet into it. So every chain 2 space gets 3 stitches. They are single crochet, double crochet, and single crochet. And in effect, what we're getting is this cute little ba-bump, 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 ba-bump all the way along the sides of our blanket. So let's do one more together. Find the chain 2 space, work a single crochet, a double crochet, and a single crochet all into the same chain 2 space. That's all you do for every single chain 2 space all the way around for this last row of our border. When you get to a chain 3 corner space, you're going to work single crochet, 3 double crochets, and a single crochet all into the chain 3 corner space. So corner spaces get a little extra love. Single crochet, 3 double crochet, single crochet, and every other space, little chain 2 spaces, get a single crochet, a double crochet, and a single crochet. And that's all you need to know for this final row. And I will see you back at the beginning. Once you've worked a single crochet, double crochet, and single crochet into every chain 2 space, and you're back to the original chain 3 space that we started in. Remember, every chain 3 corner space is single crochet, 3 double crochet, single crochet, all worked into the same space. You're just going to join with a slip stitch to that first single crochet that you joined your yarn with. Slip stitch and fasten off. You can trim your yarn. weave in that tail, and that is that. You might also want to steam block or wet block your blanket if you want to get it to sort of lay nice and flat and make sure all of your corners are nice and square. But past that, we're all done. I love this. I love the use of all my leftover yarns. I love the patchy kind of look to it. I love the way that you can bring all the different colors that you may have used in your patchwork blanket into the border, and I love how playful it is. I also think it's really cool that there's a little bit of spacing all the way around the last row, or the second last row of the border, because it's different. It contrasts the rest of the blanket, which was really solid double crochet for the whole year. We hope you enjoyed making this calendar blanket project along with us this year, and we will see you soon here on the Jayda and Stitches show. Until then, stay safe, stay crafty, stay cozy, and we will talk to you soon. Bye!
Hi everybody, Mr. InStitches here. Thank you for watching today. Here are some of our other videos you might be interested in. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe.